Welcome to the Morning Track Power Hour. I'm Dr. Andrew Scant. He is Dr. Michael Worman, Esquire. On today's show, we'll recap the action from the NFL's Week 15, and we'll also talk about next week's games for Week 16. We'll talk a little about the college football playoff and provide some picks for what we expect to happen in the first round, because we're obviously college football experts now. Also, if we're talking about it here, I guess, right? On
Yeah.
sort of on television.
Regular week
Uh,
lessons.
exactly. We'll start today's show in a similar place we've been starting our shows for the last several weeks with the Kansas City Chiefs. They did win their 13th game of the season now, 13-1. They did win it a little more comfortably this time. Also, the defense performed quite well, forcing 6 turnovers in the game. But Mahomes did take a high ankle injury, like a high ankle sprain. Uh, so again, they have won. But have they won you over? Are you now confident that they are in good position heading towards the playoffs in the 1 seed?
Um, no, I don't think I'm not. If I am anything, I don't think I'm less confident than I was last week, but I am a little less confident that they might get the number one seed, especially if Mahomes doesn't play. Um, but even if he does, because I don't think the line is protecting him very well. He really got crumpled and smashed in that play against Cleveland where he injured his ankle. I saw that he might have injured both ankles. One was maybe a regular low ankle sprain, one was a high ankle sprain.
Oh, jeez.
Uh, but um, yeah, he was real because he had both ankles taped up after that hit, if you remember. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, I that game didn't give me a whole lot of confidence. The defense played really well, but if you get 6 turnovers, that's often it's not necessarily because the defense is necessarily creating all those turnovers. It's a lot of times it's the offense of the other team that is falling into those turnovers. First it was against Jameis Winston, who has a tendency to throw a lot of picks, which
Yeah.
he um, also there was a couple of fumbles that maybe at least one was an unforced error. It was a muffed punt that wasn't really caused by a Chiefs player. So, but the Chiefs did manage to get when they got their hands on the ball, they ended up catching it rather than dropping it. McDuffie's interception was particularly nice, I think, in the end zone where he was
Yes.
so and a couple of the other ones were when Winston threw into double coverage and stuff like that, which happens, but usually the Chiefs don't get the picks there. So I think they had 10 there were 10 takeaways by the Chiefs going into that game, and now they have 16 coming out of that game. So I think maybe some of the turnover luck kind of just sort of went to the mean there. And
Yes. All at once.
yeah, so that was good. The offense didn't play particularly well, though. Mahomes still isn't on target on the deep throws at all. It doesn't seem like with Worthy, especially. Mahomes did throw. It looked like he did only got credit for 2 touchdown passes, but I thought he threw 3 touchdown passes. Did you see that? Well, one that went to Worthy was called a rushing touchdown by Worthy.
Oh, I didn't even notice that happened. Yeah.
Yeah, there were three. So Mahomes threw three, but he only was credited for two because I guess they said the worthy one did not go was not a forward
Was
pass.
forward.
But I think if it had been incomplete, it would have been seen as a forward pass and not as a lateral. So Mahomes, I think, lost some of his some stats and some quarterback rating stuff because of that uh, non-throw throw. But yeah, it was. I'm encouraged that the game wasn't that close. The Chiefs defense played well, other than that one big play to Jerome Ford, that one big rushing touchdown. But by then, I think it was kind of out of reach. But yeah, the Mahomes injury is troubling. The Chiefs' lack of consistent success on offense is also, I think, troubling. But they still find ways to win, which is heartening. I guess the opposite of troubling. Um, so I don't know. What do you think, Dr. Scaff? Are you more on the Chiefs bandwagon, or are you taking one foot off the bandwagon and placing it on the ground?
I don't think I'm leaving the bandwagon anytime soon here, Mike. Just being a natural homer, I think anyway. But yeah, no, I mean, in some ways, maybe will be a little fortunate if they can manage to get Mahomes to like not necessarily have to play these next like all of the 3 games in a row. That it was 3 days and 3 games in 11 days. Um, to not have to do all of that, right? So like the hope was that maybe he didn't have to play the last one, but maybe this is in some way a good thing. Like you can get a little bit of, you know, testing of Carson Wentz to make sure that he's ready to play. He's been sitting all year at this point. So and I think as you've mentioned many times, is probably the best backup the Chiefs had maybe ever,
I, yeah, I think
especially
so.
recently.
At least recently. Maybe you could say since since Dave Craig was the backup to Joe Montana that one year, or maybe I guess Rich Gannon was a good backup to Elvis Gerback.
He was. And maybe he should have continued not
Maybe
been
he was the hot
yeah,
hand at least. I think
right.
yeah. Looking back on it, that seems to be the wrong decision that the Chiefs made. But I don't think in that time, and I don't know if a lot of people say, oh, they should have gone with Gannon to that. But I think that's hindsight after Gannon won his MVP with the Raiders. I don't know if it was
Right.
really something that I don't know because I think everybody thought Gerback was the number one quarterback at that point, even then. But and Gannon was kind of a disappointment, like a failed starter elsewhere, and
Yeah.
um, that's how I remember it anyway. I was we were but teenagers when that controversy uh, le uh, reared its ugly head. But yeah. That game as well, that featured uh, so that was a playoff disappointment ultimately when the Chiefs ended up losing to the Denver Broncos in the first round of the playoffs. The Chiefs they play the Broncos the last game of the season, and if the Chiefs win their next 2 games, it won't matter what happens in that Broncos game, and so Wentz would probably play that game no matter what
Right.
if the Chiefs won their first 2. But if the Chiefs need to win that game to make the number 1 seed, it seems like Mahomes will have to play in that.
Right.
Um,
But
so
then the reward would be to not play the first round of playoffs. So that's you'd still
yeah,
get a week off there. But
I'd like to see Mahomes um, play this week against the Texans, play against Pittsburgh on Christmas, and then take the next couple of weeks off. After winning those 2 games, he can take the next 2.5 weeks plus off to recover from his injury as long as he doesn't aggravate it further. Even if he aggravates it a little bit, it's still 2.5 plus weeks before he
yeah.
would play again. Um, and that would be the ideal situation. I think the Chiefs would be, going into the Denver game 15-1. The Bills, or if, the Bills likely won't lose another game because they play, at least for NFL standards, cream puffs in New
Yeah.
England twice and the New York Jets. So
But that's because they got through the Lions this week, which I think both of us at least hoped or maybe thought that Detroit might actually
yeah,
beat
I was hoping
Buffalo.
when um I guess the game, so the Rams ended up knocking them off, which was a little bit of a surprise. Although I think I picked that Rams victory because I
You
thought
did.
maybe that was going to be a game that Buffalo was going to overlook since I think they really wanted to win against Detroit.
Yeah.
Um, but Buffalo's defense hasn't been looking so good. If you
I
wanted,
don't know.
they've allowed 40 plus points the last 2 games in a row, so that's not where you want to be defensively.
And historically we've seen some like, these types of teams in the past that have can put up huge numbers offensively, but also can give up a lot of points, and they don't tend to do all that well in the playoffs. Just in general, this style of play, at least.
Yeah, I guess the last one of the last well, I saw this on Nick Wright on Fox Sports had said one of the last teams that played like the Bills with the really good offense, but the really not so good defense that gives all points was the 2018 Chiefs with Mahomes that ended up becoming strong Super Bowl contenders, but they ended up losing in the playoffs to uh, Tom Brady and the Patriots, who were, I think, actually went to their third Super Bowl in a row in that by winning against the Chiefs. Although that was a game that the Chiefs probably should have won, where they lost in overtime when Brady's interception was nullified by the D Brown uh, D Ford the D Ford offsides penalty. But
Yes,
this is
it's lined up offside. Yeah,
yeah. I don't know about yeah, it's one of those things. The Chiefs, I do feel like they can get some things taken care of, but do you feel like the Chiefs are a worse team this year than even though they have a much better record? They're 13-1 right now. Are they a worse team than they were last year when they finished 11-6 in the regular season? It seems like that seems to be the public perception almost.
yeah. I don't think it's true. I think the seasons have been almost the same. It's just this year they seem to have come out, sort of luckier where they've managed to get that block at the
Mhm.
end of the game. They've managed to hit those field goals, maybe squeak them just inside. I think these were just games that like the Chiefs tended to lose last year, but they're kind of similar. Like they're kind of like the same team as last year, but they just happen to be sort of, almost luckier. But
Yeah,
they're
it
still winning all these very close games. So it's not
it seems like
I don't know.
last year
I don't see it as troublesome. It's more like, I mean, you always want to be able to be tested and show that you can win the close games, and they've got that in spades so far. So they know they're in every game. It doesn't matter what the scenario is, but the hope is that they just don't get like way behind in the game where they have to like claw out of it like they did last year, which is sort of they have not been in that situation really this year, like been like way down, I guess.
Yeah, I think last year it seemed like, well, maybe the problems were, the receivers were dropping the ball a lot, but
Yeah.
this seems like the problem is protecting Mahomes.
Hmm.
I think the receiving core is better because you have DeAndre Hopkins now. I think Juju, even though Ray Rice is gone, I think it seems like there are more options this year. With also Noah Gray has taken a couple steps forward. But
Hmm.
say Kelsey's maybe taking a step back. He's still catching a lot of passes, but he's not, he's only averaging like 7 or 8 yards a catch now rather than like the 10, 11, 12 that he used to average. So I don't know. There's something a little bit off about what the Chiefs are doing. And it seems like their offense is it's like pulling teeth. It's a painstaking,
Yeah.
difficult offense. And nothing is easy. And
Well, they finally have shifted to throwing a lot more screen passes. Like, they've been sort of doing like wide receiver screens the last couple of years, but this year it's been they finally like reincorporated like the more of the running back type screens, which
yeah.
you sort of expect them to have done a lot, but they don't really. They would do a
I
lot of
know.
jet sweeps and stuff like that, but they didn't really do a whole lot of like running back screen type plays. But they did in this last game with some success.
Yeah, it's hard to say what because it seems like the Chiefs when they don't have receivers that are just open. It seems like we talked about this last year. Like a lot of teams just have receivers that are just wide open, like down the field, and they don't seem to get. There's either it's scheme or it's players that can't get open. I don't know what exactly it is.
Yeah.
I tend to think it's the offense has gotten a little bit stale. The read it does still has occasional like weird trick plays that are different, but I think the scheme itself maybe is something that I think if Mahomes played for another team, he would have better stats. He might not win as much maybe, but he would have better offensive numbers than what he's currently getting with the Nagy Reed Chiefs attack. I don't know. It's something.
Well, a former offensive coordinator just became available, Mike. I don't know if you heard, but
Yeah, Eric Bieniemy, I believe he left UCLA. So maybe they could bring him back as a consultant. The Chiefs like to bring people back into the fold. So,
yes, they do.
um,
Really, like a lot. Like they really, really like to do this. It's not just a thing they occasionally do. They do it a lot.
yeah,
So it would kind of make sense actually if he's out there.
yeah,
Why
uh,
not? Why not bring him back for the playoffs as a consultant or
yeah.
some kind of assistant coach?
Another guy we that's coming back we is Hollywood Brown. It appears that he's going to be he had full practices already this week, so it's like he's probably going to be ready for the game against the Texans next week, or this coming Saturday. So maybe
Yeah,
again the Chiefs wide receiving core is going to be looking a little bit better, uh, even this week, even this coming week from last year. So that might be, I think the piece that when Rashee Rice went out, they lost their number one receiver. Maybe Brown can kind of play some of that role, or at least help spread the defense out a little bit, even just a little bit more to get Hopkins and Kelsey open more, and Juju.
yeah,
Juju has looked pretty good the last couple of weeks. He's
yeah.
been silent kind of for a while. Um,
He made a little bit more noise this week. Yeah.
he got a touchdown. Um, yeah, it's so what? Yeah, anything else you want to talk about with the Chiefs? Should we mention Buffalo a little bit? Any other games you want to go through, or should we talk about our bets this past week and how they went?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, we'll talk about our bets. So we were, I believe, 3-3 overall
Yes.
the week. I was
That's right.
2-1. You were 1-2 on our locks. Should we go through we usually do? Should we go through our losses first and then get to our wins? So I guess we'll start with you, Dr. Scaff. Um,
Yeah, that means I have to start again
again,
because
yeah.
once again,
Once again,
yes.
it's just a fine line between 2-1 and 1-2. It's a neck.
Yeah.
Uh,
And there were some weird games this week. I think maybe the games were maybe a bit more unpredictable as a whole for us, but yeah, you still managed to figure out how to get at least two wins every week for quite some time now, I think. But you haven't had a losing week in a long time, Mike. You've definitely found some kind of strategy that's working here.
yeah, yeah. I've been able to get a consistent, at least get two wins out of it. I don't know what it's been. I've been betting mostly spreads, and that's been working.
Yeah,
Uh, so. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I think it's just that I'm looking for any game I can find that I think might work. And I think I ended up doing that this week, or I hope, although I went back to some old favorites this week when we were going to talk about our bets for week 16. But um yeah, how about yes, but you were just one away from a winning record.
yes.
What was your unlucky lock?
My first yeah, maybe faulty lock this week uh was actually I had an under pick in the Jets Jacksonville game, which looked good about that at the halftime. It was only 13-7 at the half, but there was a lot more scoring in the third and fourth quarters than for the two teams. Uh, like Aaron Rodgers ended up leading the team on a game-winning drive towards the end. The Jets ended up winning 32-25 for 57
That's a high
points,
scoring game. One of the higher
which
scoring
is
games.
16 and a half points over the 40 and a half. So I was not even close on this one. But at the
No,
half, it looked okay, right? 13-6. That's
yeah,
pretty good for a first half.
yeah. Who would have thought a Michael McCoy,
13-7.
Mac Jones led team would score 27 points, and that the Jets would need to score more points to win that game? So I think that was I think surprising to me as well that the game
Yeah.
was scoring.
But
Neither of
yeah,
the
three touchdowns and a field goal in the fourth quarter after 17-16 was the end of the third. Even there, it's a little iffy, right? You're like, "Oh, it's still under, but there's one touchdown left, and
Yeah,
and no, but yeah, then yeah, three touchdowns in the fourth quarter.
yeah, that
Yeah,
was super
sunk. Yes. How about your first
loss.
your unlock of the week, your
My
faulty lock?
my yes, my easily picked lock of the week
Yes.
was one that I felt decent about going in. Seattle hosting Green Bay, but Seattle got trounced by the Packers. The Packers ran all over them, and they just it was Seattle was never really in it. It was a 30-13 game. Green Bay won. Seattle was actually 2.5 point underdogs. I thought, oh, that's a good bet because I think Seattle at least is maybe it should be a pick 'em type of game. Because I think Seattle might not be quite as good as Green Bay on a neutral field, but at Seattle, home of the 12th man, as they call it. Not terribly original. It's called the 12th man, uh,
Right.
it's in the NFL. It's a big. I think they're the only team that has the number 12 retired for the fans, and
Yeah.
yeah, it didn't work out particularly well. Um, Green Bay was Green Bay was just the better team, and they won by 17. They were favored by 2.5, so I guess they won by uh 14. I lost that bet by 14.5 points. So that was a
Slight,
solid loss. And I wasn't
yeah,
even I think from the get-go it didn't look good for Seattle. So I
slightly better than my like was 17 point
yeah.
loss on over under. So yeah, so it's still it wasn't good, but still a little better, I guess. But
Mhm.
no, but also featured Geno Smith
Getting
getting
injured.
injured the second half, where that surely didn't help
No,
Seattle's cause or yours in the pick.
Sam Howell didn't exactly rally them to the victory or anything like that. So, but
Yeah,
it was Sam Howell. Was it Howell? Who was the
that's right. Yeah, same
yeah
hell.
backup? Yeah, former Washington quarterback. Um,
Who seemed to be a player favorite though in
yeah,
Washington. So
yeah, maybe. And it looks like maybe Smith will come back next week. It wasn't as serious an injury maybe as they had thought it might be, but yeah, Seattle was not on top in that game. Um, how about your second uh, unlock of the week?
my second pick, I'm still a little surprised by that it went so poorly. Was I had Miami as a 2.5 point underdog at Houston. Houston being a little bit depleted defensively from their suspension from that is going to have an effect on the game at least anyway. But uh, Houston still managed to play pretty well. They ended up winning 20-12. Yeah, Tua wasn't able to muster much offense, and yeah, Houston ended up winning by 8, easily covering that spread. So I was again not terribly close, but you know, it's more of a surprise to me than it was, uh, like one team like playing super well. Stroud still only had 130 yards passing. Houston didn't have much offense, but Tua unable to do much on offense. Three interceptions, I guess, is probably what maybe sunk them more than anything else.
Yeah, the Texans, like you said, hadn't been playing terribly well. But I guess it was at home. I was thinking the Dolphins were going to take that because they were, still clinging to playoff hopes. Uh,
Yeah,
but yeah, that didn't turn out that way at all. It was a low scoring game. Um, but yeah, it was yeah, Miami was never really quite in it, even though I guess it looks fairly close, 20-12, but Miami was yeah, it was a poor offensive performance for the Dolphins.
yeah.
Um,
Right now the losses are out of the way. Then, Mike.
Now the losses are
Why
out of
don't
the
why don't we
way.
get to some more impressive things here?
Yeah. Okay, so the other one of the games that I predicted, I partly because I had been burned so many times by Tennessee this year, was I predicted Cincinnati -4.5 at Tennessee. The game I think started out fairly close for Tennessee. I think Tennessee was ahead at the beginning of that game, which was not looking good for me. But
Yeah.
Cincinnati ended up pulling ahead and pulling away. They won that game. They were favored by 4.5 points, and they ended up winning by 10 points. So they won 37-27 on the road. Ended up being a very high scoring game. But yeah, Joe Burrow and the Bengals were too much for the Titans, who I believe now are going to turn, I believe, to Mason Rudolph as the starter next week. It's no longer going to be um, what is Will Levis.
So,
Uh, yeah. So Cincinnati, again, I guess they are still tending clinging to playoff hopes, but very, very unlikely that they will make the playoffs. But they're still technically in the hunt. So maybe they still have something to play for. But yeah, they won 37-27, a very high scoring game um, that I did not predict. I predicted an under in that game, but I believe
yeah.
you predicted the over, I believe. So uh, that was good for you. But yeah, I didn't. But
And
fortunately, I did
I
not bet
I
the over.
didn't actually. We
We
both
did.
had the under in that one.
We both hit the under that one. Oh,
Yeah.
oh
I
well.
assumed Cincinnati was going to score a lot of points. I didn't think Tennessee would score anything, but yeah, the difference there being Mason Rudolph. Levis was 8 of 12 for 89 yards, no touchdowns, three interceptions. Then Rudolph took over 21 of 26, 209 yards, two touchdowns.
Yeah,
So that's a big difference there in performance.
yeah, yeah. So, but Tennessee lost, which I was happy about, and they lost fairly handily, which I was also happy about for that game. So Cincinnati uh, won by 10. Um, and so that was my first win. How about your first lock that actually locked? I guess you're technically your only lock that locked last week.
The
Uh,
only functional lock that I had this week
functional.
is yeah, it was the only game that went the way that I really expected to, I guess, in most facets anyway, was Atlanta at the Las Vegas Raiders on Monday night. I didn't think there was going to be much action in this one, and there wasn't. The final score was just 15-9 for a total of 24 points, which was a full 20 points below the over-under number 44.5. So that was not close and an easy win there for my one lock of the week. That was correct.
Yeah, that was a good one for you. It stayed way under. Neither team scored. Neither team looked
Yeah,
good. It turns out now that Atlanta is not even going to, they're going to start Michael Penix rather than Kirk Cousins, who's had a rough last few weeks. I think he's thrown one touchdown to like nine interceptions his last 4 or 5 games. So
not great.
yeah, that was a low scoring game, low scoring affair between two teams that are, well, I guess one team you could say still has playoff hopes in Atlanta, but they're not playing nearly as well as their division rivals, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, have been playing, who won against uh, the Chargers last week in a fairly handy fashion, which I think was a little surprising probably to both of us how easily they won, especially the way the Chargers have been playing fairly tough. Um,
I think
so
they put up 40 points in the game too, didn't they?
yeah, yeah, they ran away with it. Um, but yeah, the Falcons, yeah, they took care of business against the depleted Las Vegas Raiders, especially with their quarterback situation. So yeah, that was a good
Yeah.
under bet. Uh, my third lock of the week, my second functioning lock of the week, also featured an AFC West team. This was Denver playing Indianapolis at home. Denver was 3.5 point favorites. It actually looked like a terrible bet most of the way through this game because Indianapolis was winning most of it, and it looked like they were going to go up 20-7 at one point when Jonathan Taylor had a big touchdown run that turned out to be nullified and turned into a touchback when he dropped the ball not nonchalantly as he was not yet crossed the goal line. He was still, I guess, an inch or two away from the goal line. This happened in the Jets game maybe a few weeks back when and it seems to happen every once in a while in the NFL when the
Yeah,
first touchdown he's untouched and he just runs across the goal line and he drops the ball slightly before he gets to the goal line, and this time um, Taylor did that, and that was a huge momentum swing. And Denver kind of ran away with it after that. And Indianapolis didn't, I don't think, end up scoring any more points. They had 13 at the time. They were going to score 20, and they only ended up with 13. So Denver ended up with 31. So they won by 18 points. And so they won my bet by uh, 14 and a half points. So it was ended up being a comfortable win for the Broncos, and Bo Nix, who didn't actually play very well. He had a few interceptions and maybe lived
yeah.
maybe lived down to his short name in that game. So um, so that made me happy in two ways, that I was right on my bet, and also that Bo Nix maybe not be the second coming of Drew Brees, or some other, Tony Romo or some other Sean Payton protege that he had. So um, we'll see what happens with Denver. Denver's now, I believe, not are they nine? They're nine and
Nine and
six,
five, 9-5.
9 and 5, 9 and 5. So in playoff positioning, so it looks like, yeah, they'll make they're 99% chance to make the playoffs. Even the Chargers at 8 and 6, I think, are still like a 90% chance to make the playoffs, because the Colts were the team that was threatening the most, I think, out of the outside looking in. But now they're down to 6 and 8, and they have an easy, I think, final schedule. But
I think
basically,
the Bengals are still like around like 2% or something like that. It's all,
yeah,
but the AFC is pretty well set at this point.
yeah, it's just jockeying of positions within the seeding.
And
Uh,
none of the seeds are assigned at all, I don't think, at this point. So they're all up for grabs.
yeah, I think and one of the division titles, I think the Steelers Ravens could still switch. The Ravens could win the division against the Steelers, depending on what happens in next week's or this coming week's game, and the next couple of weeks for the Steelers. But yeah, the other big games, we didn't mention, the Steelers were outclassed by the Eagles. We mentioned Buffalo beating the Lions. Now we have three teams in the NFC with 12-2 records. Which of those three teams, Minnesota's the other one, which of those three teams do you think has the best shot at winning the NFC? Do you like Detroit, who's maybe the favorite all year, but they've been injured as of late? They lost David Montgomery, I believe. They had been depleted on defense, but now they lost their best, or one of their two best running backs. And we also have the Eagles, who have won 9, 10 straight games, something like that, and the
And
the
yeah, 10 in a
Vikings,
row.
who have played well all year as well. So, which of those three teams do you think has the best shot at winning the NFC, or will the NFC champion come out of not one of those teams? Will it be will it be Green Bay perhaps, or one of the other potential playoff teams?
I think it's really up for grabs. I'm pretty concerned about Detroit right now, though, with all the injuries stacking up. It seems to be like maybe it's getting to be too much at this point. Just to be able to be that, elevated, at least anyway. The expectations to be, to go to the Super Bowl from the beginning of the season, essentially. But it's looking a little more difficult now with all those injuries stacking up. But I think, Philly seems to be running pretty smoothly right now. They've got that, run game that's so strong. That's and a solid defense too. So that's a good combination to like make a deep playoff run. As long as they don't do anything ridiculous, but they obviously have some issues internally because they continue to, make comments to the media and picking fights with fans in their own stadium, stuff like that are things that don't look great, usually sort of like maybe allude to some, internal issues that the team has, uh, possibly, related to their leadership, I guess. But that doesn't help. It doesn't usually look that good, at least anyway. That's not that, what you're expecting out of a team that's going to make a deep run at the same time. Usually these are problems that lesser teams have, right?
Yeah, it's weird. I think in some ways as well, it seems like Minnesota is the team that is getting overlooked by
Yeah.
everybody thinks it's going to be Detroit or Philadelphia. The Minnesota is lurking there with the same record as both of those teams. I guess it's probably mainly because who the quarterback is, Sam Darnold. And question might be, does Darnold, is he going to continue if the team goes to the playoffs? Is he going to continue playing for the Vikings? Is he going to be offered a big contract as their starting quarterback, or are they going to, roll the dice with this year the injured but the drafted in the first round JJ McCarthy, um, which in some ways I think is dumb. I think they should go with Darnold because Darnold's a few years older, but he was also more highly touted than McCarthy was. Darnold was like thought to be in the mix for the number one overall pick in a very quarterback heavy draft that
Right.
included Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and a Baker Mayfield as well. And this was a fairly heavy quarterback draft as well, but nobody thought um, McCarthy was going to be the number one pick, or nobody thought he should be the number one pick. Um, and he's been
Or even
in.
as high as he did get picked. It was a little
Yeah,
surprising
he's
anyway.
injured
So
already. They thought maybe he'd be third or fourth overall among the quarterbacks. So yeah, I don't. Um, yeah, I wonder. Yeah, it seems like if I don't know, maybe McCarthy's value is a little too low right now, but it seems like he might be a guy you want to trade, uh, just because, well, you don't know what you have. You already have a decent, solid starter in Darnold, who is not that old. I think he's younger than Mahomes still. He's not Kirk Cousins' age. And so I don't know. It's one of those things we talked about what did the 49ers do with Brock Purdy? You know, what do the Vikings do with Sam Darnold? Um,
he's only 27
yeah,
now, right now.
yeah. So he's right in the prime of his career and he's having a great year.
Yeah. Well,
The
yeah,
white
29 touchdowns, only 11 interceptions,
Yeah.
104.9 rating for the season. Not bad.
No.
Well, and the expectation was low too. So that's like they knew he was going to be the starter, but uh, they didn't know he was going to be like a Pro Bowl type player, right?
No, and it's one of those things where maybe if you're the 40 or like if you're the 49ers, you had Sam Darnold last year. Do you try to get Sam Darnold back for maybe half the price that Brock Purdy would cost and maybe be just as
Yeah.
good and try to keep, but I don't know what Sam Darnold's going rate would be. He's probably not a $50 million quarterback from just one year, which seems to be the going rate for a
Yeah.
solid starter right now. But yeah, it's an odd place to be, I think. For
Yeah.
things.
But they're
They're
12-2 now. They've won
12-2.
seven straight.
Mhm.
Yeah, their
And
point differential in the season is right in line with what Phillies is at the same record. So it's they're I mean they're not the team that had to come back in every single game
mm,
from a few years ago when Cousins was the QB there, right?
yeah, I think their quarter. In some ways, you could say that Darnold is just as good as Goff probably is, maybe better than Goff. Goff was the number one pick too, but he was, that was when Carson Wentz was the number two pick. So the Chiefs have two highly touted quarterbacks now as their in their QB room. In some ways, Wentz was more highly touted than even Mahomes was the year before. So Wentz and Goff went in the 16 draft, Mahomes in the 17 draft, and Darnold in the 18 draft. So it's an interesting world the way the quarterbacks have kind of been recycled and reborn. And it seems like somebody like maybe even if Wentz plays a couple of good games for the Chiefs, can he you know, resurrect his career as a starter for the league. But that would mean that he would have to play in place of Mahomes a couple of games for that to materialize. So
Boys, I mean, the hope is that he gets at least one anyway, right? Is that
he
they're
gets that Denver
they've
game.
they've won the number one seed and don't have to play that final game.
Mhm.
Would have been nice if Detroit upset Buffalo because then they could have had two of those games off and then
Yeah.
instead of just the one, but which I think would have also been funny to not basically rest your starters on my Christmas Day game, which would have been
Yeah.
pretty funny. The league would have hated it, but
Now they have to
the
play.
Chiefs would have loved
Now they have to play that Christmas game. Or well, I guess Mahomes might not play, but the Chiefs have to really work at winning that
it.
Christmas
Yes,
now.
the door is a little open, a little more open than they'd like it to be, I think. Yes.
Hmm. Um, well, yeah, so that was week 15. We have a lot of interesting happenings, uh, and we'll preview the end of the end of the season is getting near. So we'll talk about week 16 in a little bit. But speaking of the end of this, oh, let's talk about our big board. We haven't talked about the big board yet, Dr.
You got
Scout.
you got it.
We did our bets of the week. I was 2-1. You were 1-2 for the locks of the week. We were somewhat similar in our overall bets. I finished a little bit above breaking even. I won about $80 on the week, betting in all. 48 of our bets, or 16 or 16 games on the slate, 16 spreads, 16 over-unders, and 16 money lines. I ended up winning $79 after all of that. You lost. You had one of your worst weeks in recent memory. Uh,
Yes.
what do you attribute that to? Just
Hmm.
bad luck? Um, just something you missed a trend that you thought you saw, or was it just a wacky week?
Let's see, like I was pretty evenly not great this time. Like I was about the same number of picks correct in each of the three types of bets, 7, 9, and 8, for the spread money line and over under. So it's kind of like I think maybe the league was just a little bit more unpredictable this week than for me at least. So like the Jets Jacksonville game being a high scoring game, that's to me surprising. Miami not playing well against Houston, like that was surprising. And like just a couple games like that, and that's enough to really throw things off for like your whole week.
Yeah, it only takes a few here or there, and then you're stuck. You're stuck. And then it seems much harder to win than it does to lose. It's easy to lose in these, which I think
Yeah,
is what that's why Vegas makes so much money on these betting these betting lines because yeah, it's hard to win. You're gonna the house wins most of the time. So uh,
yeah,
we're now after this week we're both under for the year. I guess we're each less than $1,000 under for the year. I'm about $800 under. You're about $300 under now. Um, so we're both within shouting distance of breaking even, which
yeah.
I think is a big win for for betting on every game. I don't think that's a good strategy for anybody to bet on every game,
No,
uh,
not at all.
because you can't really analyze every game or have a good feeling about every game. Um, what?
But we
Oh,
are but we are gluttons for punishment,
yeah,
and
that's defenseman.
and we
What?
like our spreadsheets.
Yeah.
So
Speaking of our spreadsheets, where are we on the our locks of the week? What are our standings for the locks of the week right now?
after your 2-1 week, this week you're now at 27-18 on the season for plus $900. My several weeks in a row now, 1 and 2, have been slowly just bleeding cash. But luckily these are only $100 at a time in this case. So I'm now at 23 and two pushers on the season for minus $300. So the spread between us is now $1,200. We have 12 picks remaining on the season, Mike. So I am needing to run the table while you do the opposite, apparently. That's the only way that I can catch you now in the season.
Yeah,
So
we decided either the opposite would be ruin the table,
ruin the table.
table the run. I don't
Yes, it works. We got some good wordplay there on
Either
the
one.
second one too. So that's
Yeah. We'll
yeah,
table this run or we will ruin the table.
ruin it. So you just have to not ruin the table
Yeah.
uh, to win the season. So we're already at that position where you can close out the year with just a single pick, Mike. So if your picks here can be a little riskier, I think, if you want them to be.
Well, I
But
don't.
we'll get to that in a while, though.
I
But
think all the picks seemed risky this week, so I wasn't a huge fan of any of them. Um,
maybe you're going to try to close out the season on one of the weirdest picks you can find, and just only make one pick this week and make it be a real weird one, just so you can say that you closed it out on that. That's
yeah.
how confident you are.
That's how confident I am. Well, I am not that confident. But speaking of not that confident, we also made bets this week on the college football playoffs. This is the first year of the 12-team NCAA Division One Bowl Championship Series. That was once the football bowl subdivision. I guess it's still the FBS. It was, but now we
Yes.
are in the 12-team playoff era with the with the bowls. Uh, but the first round games that are being hosted are at college sites. We have um, 4 games on the slate, um, and we each made bets on the spread for each of those 4 games. And we also made a bet on the team that we think was most likely to win the national championship this year, and let's go through those uh, bets. We had the first game that we are going to make a bet on was Indiana, which was a surprise team this year, uh, playing against Notre Dame at Notre Dame. Indiana is plus 7.5 point underdogs against Notre Dame. That game, of course, is being played by 2 Indiana teams, so Indiana doesn't have too far to travel from Bloomington up to South Bend. Do you think the proximity makes Indiana a decent underdog to bet on, or are you going to go with the home team Irish in that game, Dr. Scaff?
Not really been a fan of the Irish. I tend to you root against them in general, but I think in this game I'm actually going to take the home team. Yeah, Fighting Irish in this first one. How about you?
I think Notre Dame's going to win, but I think Notre Dame is not that great. I think Indiana has played well this year. Notre Dame, I believe, lost to was it Eastern Illinois or Western Illinois, Northern
Mm,
Illinois? It was one of the north. I think it was one of the
one of the directionals.
directional Illinois teams this year at Notre Dame. So that was their one loss on the year. So I don't know how. I think Notre Dame's probably going to win the game, but I think Indiana can keep it close. So I'm going to, go with the surprise Indiana Hoosiers to cover the 7.5 point spread. So maybe Notre Dame wins by a field goal or something like that.
Northern Illinois.
It was Northern Illinois,
Not you.
the Huskies.
Yes. Yes. Yes, the Huskies. That was in the second week of the season.
Speaking of surprises like Indiana, the second of these games that we're going to bet on is features the SMU Mustangs, newly admitted to the ACC. Uh, they seem like a better fit for the Big 12, but they were kept out of the Big 12, and I think SMU and Baylor were the 2 teams that probably when those 2 teams became members, kept SMU from joining. And then we have Houston, the other Texas team that joined the Big 12 later. Um, so SMU remained independent, or at least maybe Conference USA, some other bounced around a little bit. Formed one of the former Southwest Conference teams, but they haven't had a great football team probably since the 80s. And then that was when they were had those NCAA scandals and things like that. They actually received the NCAA death penalty one of those years where they couldn't play football one season. So they have come back with I guess it's been 40 years now. So, but they've come back with a vengeance. And they are going to they almost won the ACC championship. They lost barely to Clemson, who we'll talk about in a little bit. But SMU is 8.5 point underdogs at Penn State. I think everybody thought Penn State would probably be one of these teams in the 12-team playoff going into the year. They didn't disappoint. They almost won the Big Ten championship over Oregon, but that was a close game that they lost. They also lost earlier to Ohio State. Um, SMU was 8.5 point underdogs against Penn State in Happy Valley. I, of course, went to Penn State for my law school, so I have some feelings on this game, but maybe we'll get into your feelings first, Dr. Scaff. Do you think SMU has a chance to upset Penn State, or do you think Penn State's going to win by more than 8.5?
Yeah, this is where the conference schedule of the Big Ten, I think, is probably a little more difficult and more testing than probably for Penn State. I think they're probably in an advantage than going into this one. So I think I'm going to take your most recent alma mater of your many alma maters, your most recent to cover the spread in this one, minus 8.5.
Yeah, I lived in State College. I like Penn State. I've been to a game in Beaver Stadium. But I think Penn State, they tend to play games close. They're a little bit like the Chiefs. They aren't always the most explosive offensively team. They have a pretty good defense usually. Drew Aller's a good player, but um, I think Penn State will win this game, but it's a big spread, 8.5. So I think SMU might keep it, within a touchdown or so. SMU has, they're a plucky bunch. They almost came back to beat Clemson after Clemson was way ahead. So I could see even Penn State winning by 2 or 3 touchdowns, and then SMU closing it in garbage time or something like that to make it a closer game. So I'd be very happy if Penn State covered, but I'm going to go SMU plus 8.5.
Against your most recent alma mater, though. That's
Yeah,
surprising.
if it was the money line, I'd pick Penn State to win for sure. But I'm going to go on the spread. I'll go with SMU just so you know, I just think that's the best play. I hope I'm wrong.
You tend to have like relatively homery picks though, but not today.
Not today. I'll have a homer pick maybe in the NFL when we get
There we
to
go. The most recent of your many alma maters, Mike.
Yeah, I may. Yes. Um, the next of the games is the battle of the shades of orange, or between Clemson and Texas at Austin. We have Clemson, who won the ACC over SMU in the final seconds of that game. They won, but they're 11.5 point underdogs against Texas, who lost the SEC championship game to Georgia. A lot of people think Texas is the has one of the best chances of winning the whole tournament. So Texas is favored by 11.5 over Clemson. Do you think Texas will win by 11.5 or more over Clemson?
Yeah, this is another one of those that I really don't have a good feel for this one, and I think you've mentioned this before. Maybe Texas isn't even using their best quarterback in the games in general. So, but I just don't know. I could see this going either way. More or less just flipping a coin here. I'm going to take Texas, sticking with the favorites.
It's a big spread. I think Texas is going to win, but I think Clemson might keep it close-ish. So I'm going to go Clemson plus 11.5. Clemson is also one of those teams that historically has played very well in college football playoffs. They have, at least not any of these current players, but Dabo Sweeney has a lot of experience in the playoffs, so maybe the team will be have some savviness about how to play these single elimination playoff games, and they might keep it close against Texas. I think Texas will probably win, but 11.5 is a lot of points, so I'm gonna take Clemson. Of course, this probably means Texas will win by 35 or something like that, but I'm gonna go Clemson plus 11.5. So I'm taking all road underdogs so far, Dr. Scaff. But they're all of these spreads are fairly large. So it's much bigger than the NFL. Even none of these teams seem to be terribly evenly matched. Um, the last of these games also features an orange team playing at the Ohio State University in Columbus. Do you like calling it the Ohio State University?
I think it's very stupid.
It's also the Pennsylvania State University, but nobody says the Pennsylvania State.
The Pennsylvania State. Maybe you should start doing it that way.
No. But yeah, Ohio State is favored by 7.5 points at home against Tennessee. Uh, do you like the Buckeyes here, or do you like the Volunteers of Tennessee?
I think I'm gonna stick with the trend that I'd already set and yeah, complete the set and stick with the home favorites on all four of the picks, Mike. So I'm gonna continue going with Ohio State here, minus 7.5.
I am actually going to agree with you on this one. I'm going to go Ohio State minus 7.5 over Tennessee. I don't think Tennessee's that great. They lost to Arkansas earlier this year. Arkansas, another one of my alma maters, is was not a terribly great team. They were 6-6, I think, on the year. So Tennessee losing to them. Ohio State, as we'll talk about in a little bit, Ohio State, I think, is one of the best teams in the country this year. They lost to Michigan, but that was a rivalry game. Anything can happen in those games. They barely lost to Oregon at Oregon. I think Ohio State's probably the team to beat in the whole tournament. So I'm going to go with Ohio State rolling over Tennessee. So minus 7.5, I'm taking OSU. And so that's sort of a preview as to the team I think is going to win the whole thing. We each are going to make a futures bet. Ohio State at plus 500 is my bet at winning the college football playoff. So will have to win 3 games, whereas some of these other teams might only have to win 2 games to win the tournament. Who are you picking to go all the way, Dr. Scott? Is it one of these teams, or is it one of the top 4 seeds?
I think I'm going to go with one of the top four seeds, one of the teams that gets a bye through the first round. Though I was a little surprised to see two of the teams that have buys are have the longest odds of all the teams in the field, even over teams that have to play an extra game. It seems very surprising. I mean, Arizona State and Boise State both have was it plus 6,000, I think, for the year,
I'm
which
gonna
is
go for
tied
plus
for the
6,000.
longest odds.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and, they, and they have a one whole fewer game to play. This seems very surprising that the odds
Mhm.
makers be that down on them. Even with an entire less game they have to play. That's yeah,
Yeah.
shocking actually that the
Especially
odds.
when injuries can happen in that other game. So maybe,
Yeah,
quarterback can go down for the winning team even. So yeah, it's
they must really go with the rust over rest mentality that too. Must be something to do with it, maybe.
perhaps.
Yeah. But in these types of games, these like playoff scenarios, it always seems like the SEC is always bandied about as being the best conference. So I was going to try to stick with one of the SEC teams. They haven't necessarily had the best year though, uh, as a whole, but I'm going to stick with the Georgia Bulldogs. I think for my pick, plus 500, same odds as your Ohio State pick. So I think we're in the same like round, area at least anywhere, so where we expect the winner to come from, odds wise. But you've got to win an extra game
I have to win an
for your
extra
pick to
game.
win.
And the number one team is Oregon. And I think they're plus 240. And Texas is actually the second most favored team at plus 360, which I think is kind of crazy. Um,
Seems strange.
and they lost to Georgia twice already. So
Oregon was at plus 350,
plus 350?
so just 10 points higher than
Oh, it's 350.
360 for Texas.
It was 350
Yeah,
to 360. That close.
yeah.
Oh,
It's yeah, very narrow.
I was thinking Oregon was
Yeah,
maybe a little bit better. Okay. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
surprised that Texas is so high. So uh,
yeah.
I think it must be a lot of Matthew McConaughey money coming in on the Longhorns. All right, all
Must
right.
be the mattress max of the world, and
Yeah.
that yes, right.
Mattress McConaughey. That's what Matt McConaughey. If it were Matt McConaughey, maybe it could be short for mattress.
Yes,
But we know it's Matthew McConaughey.
right.
Unless he changed his name from Mattress to Matthew as a young man breaking into Hollywood.
We don't know that he did it,
Yeah. Well, those are our college football bets. We'll see how those turn out. Our NFL bets so far have been a little bit better. Uh, uh, we think we'll probably, since we follow the NFL more, we think our NFL bets will turn out better than our college football bets. But who knows? Maybe, maybe a you know a newcomer would be better at betting with less information overwhelming them, overloading their minds. So maybe we'll have beginner's luck when it comes to the college football bets. But let's move on. I want to move on to week 16 now of the NFL. We'll talk about our bets and our games. The Chiefs, of course, play the Houston Texans. Um, the Chiefs, well, maybe we should start our bets here because I'm actually making a bet on the Chiefs this year this week for the first time, I believe, all season. I'm betting on the Chiefs. Um,
So
or a Chiefs game in any way. I haven't done for my locks the over-unders or the spread for any of the KC games, and I've been doing very well because I have not been doing that. So maybe this is the bet that I am going completely against my tendencies here. Uh, but the Chiefs, because of the Mahomes injury and the thought that he might not play, or if he does play, he will be hobbled, are actually 2.5 point underdogs at home against the Texans. I feel like it seems like Mahomes, he practiced at a full practice this on Tuesday of this week. So I assume that he will probably play. So I think the line will probably shift back toward Kansas City later in the week if he does play. Or it seems like he might play. So I think this might be the best odds I can get this at any time this week. So I'm going to take the Chiefs plus 2.5 at home against the Texans. Also, I think if Wentz ends up playing it, I think the Chiefs can win with Wentz. I think the Texans aren't quite as strong as they were last year. It's going to be in Kansas City, so I think Wentz will get a lot of support if he is the quarterback. So um, I like the Chiefs really trying to get that number one seed. So that's my first lock of the week. Chiefs plus 2.5. What do you think about that, Dr. Scaff?
I like the pick. The Chiefs, have had, they've been winning every game. Like it doesn't seem to matter what they do. They figure out how to win. If you're getting 2.5 points to bet on the Chiefs, that seems like a no-brainer almost no matter what. So yeah. But yeah, you still just don't know if Mahomes is gonna play, if he's gonna be healthy, if he's gonna be 100%. Yeah, you just don't know. And after last week's games for Houston, though, I really am confused by that again. I didn't expect them to play that well against Miami, and they managed to win the game there. So I just don't know what to do with Houston right now in betting, but it does seem like betting on the Chiefs is always a safe pick, especially when you're getting points to bet on them. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think we'll see Hollywood Brown then too? Like that seems
I
like
hope so.
a
I think that
very
also is
decent
likely
possibility.
because he had a full practice this week. So usually when you practice fully, you're able to play. So I
Yeah.
would imagine that Brown will probably get in some action. So I don't know how much he'll play, but I think he'll suit up at least for the Chiefs.
Yeah. It'd be
Hopefully,
nice to see him running some routes, and
yeah, hopefully not aggravate his sternoclavicular injury.
this whole week was just set up just so you could say that all the the whole
Sterno,
discussion, everything, just so you could say that one line.
his sternoclavicular injury. Yes. How about your first lock of the week, Dr. Scaff?
Let's see. My first pick of the week. Uh, I think I'm going to take a similar strategy to what I had last week. I'm going to take a couple over-unders, but one spread. I think the spread that I'm going to take is betting on Tampa Bay. Played really well last week, putting up 40 points. This week they've got Dallas, who's still playing better, but not the typical like Dallas Cowboys anyway. So Tampa Bay is favored by 3.5 points on the road in Dallas. Dallas has been playing really poorly at home. I think they have only won once, maybe twice now on the season. So it's not been much of a home field advantage for them. So yeah, the Sunday evening game this week, Tampa Bay minus 3.5 at Dallas.
I can see that happening. Tampa has been really playing well. They need to keep winning to stay ahead of Atlanta in the playoff race for the NFC South. The NFC South is probably only going to get one team in, so they need to win that division to get in the playoffs. And Baker Mayfield's been playing really solid football, and the defense has been pretty solid. And yeah, they trounced a very good Chargers team last week in Los Angeles. So maybe they're peaking at the right time. So yeah, I think yeah, like you mentioned, Dallas hasn't been playing very well at home. They didn't win at Carolina, but last week.
What was
But
that, Carolina? Yeah,
um, yeah, so but I think I yeah I would the 3.5. Is it 3.5? The
three
three
and
and
a
a half
half.
maybe is a little bit something I balk at a little bit. I do think that Tampa's going to win, but that half, if if they win by a field goal, you would lose that bet. So that's
Yes.
gets you. I don't know which way I will lean on that. I might just see where the odds go. Like if it goes up to 4, I'll do Dallas. But if it goes down to 3, I'll do um, Tampa. But yeah, that's a close one. I do think that Tampa Bay is going to win that game, and it's also possible Dallas just falls apart again and loses big. So I don't think that's a bad bet at all. It's so yeah, I'm somewhat in the same uh, boat as you. I'm in my second bet. I am betting on a road team. But I am betting on the Pittsburgh Steelers, whom I've had success betting with this year. They lost last week to the Eagles 27-13 in the Battle of Pennsylvania. Now they're playing their hated rivals, the Baltimore Ravens. The Steelers got the best of Baltimore earlier this year in Pittsburgh. I believe they won 18-16. They're 6.5 point underdogs at Baltimore. It doesn't seem to matter too much where they play. Pittsburgh keeps the games against Baltimore close and oftentimes pulls those games out. So I think it's gonna be so Baltimore's been playing well lately. When they win, they really win big, it seems like. But I don't know if they can blow out Pittsburgh the way Pittsburgh knows how Baltimore plays. Um, you know, so I'm gonna go with the Steelers keeping it close. It's almost a full touchdown, so that they don't. I don't think they'll get blown out 2 weeks in a row. That's what basically the odds are predicting. So I like the Steelers to keep it close in Baltimore. Who knows, maybe even take the win. They won that game in Baltimore. That basically will give them the division. And then they might rest some starters against the Chiefs on Christmas, even depending on what happens with them. They're still, I guess, technically in the hunt for the number 2 seed. But I think the difference between 2 and 3 is kind of negligible. You don't know what's going to happen, but
Well, and frequently that last team in is tends to be like a pretty hot team in the playoffs.
yeah,
So maybe you don't necessarily want to be the 2 seed necessarily.
yeah, that's true. And Denver and Pittsburgh, if they went on the road, it would only be in Buffalo, and it's not very far from Buffalo to Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
It's in some ways it's a lot snowier when you go from Buffalo to Pittsburgh with the lake effect
yeah.
snow, but um,
Well, both teams are outdoor teams.
outdoor
They
cold weather teams, yeah,
accustomed to yes, bad weather. You know, maybe not the volume of snow, but may not be the same in both cities. But
yeah,
yes, but bad weather in cold is not
yeah.
uncommon.
So yeah, I'm gonna go Pittsburgh plus 6.5. I don't know if they'll win or not, but that's I might do that I still might go Pittsburgh on the money line just because Pittsburgh for some reason really plays Baltimore tough. Tomlin knows how to go against Lamar Jackson, it seems like. So
Yeah, this it isn't like just a one-time occurrence. This is kind of a an ongoing division rival
although I
that's been like this for a long time.
although I believe TJ Watt is injured, I don't know what his injury. Uh,
Ooh.
it says he's walking around rather comfortably, so he might play. He just rolled his ankle, so it's uh, possible he might play. So I'm not sure. Um, he might sort of like the Mahomes. scenario. So it looks like he suffered a low ankle sprain, much less significant, less severe than Patrick Mahomes, I see that Ian Rappaport said. So um, we'll see.
Low ankle sprains usually aren't quite as long term,
Hmm.
typically.
Yeah, they say if it was a playoff game, Watt would be playing in the game. But in this game, it seems like maybe he might. It's basically outside shot at playing. So hard to say.
Well, yeah, like maybe a game time decision kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But always though, division games are tend to be played close,
Hmm.
and you know that yeah, Pittsburgh has a history of being able to win this, even when Baltimore is the better team on paper.
Yes.
So that's not it's not at all a crazy pick by any means.
I don't think so either. Yeah.
Yeah. So my second pick, I'm going to a team that's a little injured, perhaps in Seattle. Uh, this will be Minnesota at Seattle. Let's see, that game is the 3 p.m. game on Sunday. The only 3 p.m. at 3 p.m. at least anyway. There are a handful of 3:30 games, but just the one 3 p.m. game. So they'll be unopposed for 30 minutes
Hmm.
from the new games, but we'll still be overlapped with from the early games. So I think this game's going to be relatively low scoring. So I'm going to be taking the under this one at 43 and a half. Seattle, Geno Smith may be a little tender from his knee injury if he's playing. I don't expect him to score a lot. If he's not playing, then I expect him to score even less. So yeah, I'm going to take the under in this one.
Yeah, I think the under might be a good bet. It's hard to say what Geno Smith's going to be like. How much again Seahawks didn't score very many points against Green Bay, and I do think Minnesota's a better team than Green Bay right now. So I think that could be a good pick. It also could be rainy in Seattle. Weather could be the ball could be slick. It might not be a high scoring game, rainy and windy up in Pacific Northwest. So yeah, I could see that going under. I'm as always, I'm going to bet a blanket under for all of the games. So I'm going to pick under for that game as well. Um, so yeah, of course, I think that's a good pick if you're going to go under Dr. Scaff. It's always the way to go because
Yes.
it's always under until it's over. Um, is that what it is?
Is that your second favorite gambling adage?
What's I don't know what my first favorite is.
The one that you close every week with.
Oh, as long as your bets don't no, as long as your interests don't conflict with ours. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's my yeah. I guess that's my first favorite. They had to remind me of it. We'll get there just in a few minutes. I think we're almost ready to wrap up. But before we have to finish, we have to do our finish our locks of the week.
Yes.
And speaking of unders, I've decided to forego a third spread bet to go with one of my patented unders this week, and I'm picking one of the less attractive matchups, to say the least, I think, this week. The New York Giants at the Atlanta Falcons. I believe Michael Penix is going to be starting for Atlanta instead of Kirk Cousins this weekend. So that also, I think, um, tends to make me think that the game is going to be under. I'm not sure who's going to play for the Giants. I guess it's probably going to be Tommy DeVito as the Giants quarterback, or maybe
Not
uh,
Drew Lock.
I think Drew Lock's been hurt, hasn't he?
Is he? See, that's how little I follow the Giants, Mike. How does anybody watch the Giants? That's my question.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, it was Drew Lock had a heel injury last week and so he did not start. Uh
Yeah, so Tim Boyle and Tommy DeVito played against Baltimore this week. That's a tough one.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, if Tim Boyle starts, they're not going to score any points. He's one of those
No,
guys. You were talking about him in college. He even had a much worse. He was not very good in college, but somehow he's playing in the NFL consistently over a lot of other quarterbacks. He must have some dirt on some NFL coaches, I think. So But I do think that the game's going to be low scoring between those two teams. So I believe the over under is it 42 and a half?
42 and a half.
Um, so I like the under there. This game, I think Atlanta will win. Atlanta's favored by 9.5 points, so I think Atlanta might win something like I can see the game being like 20-10 or something like that, and that would be comfortably under. So 42 and a half. It'd have to be each team I think would need to be in the 20s to get over. So I don't see Atlanta winning this game like 38-10 or something like that to get over. So I think this would take a fairly high scoring effort from both teams, and I just don't see that happening. So I like Atlanta, the Giants at Atlanta under 42 and a half as my third lock of the week.
I thought you would go with your the anti-scorigami standard home team final
Ooh,
score as your
home team
pick.
20, road team 17.
Yeah.
That's a little high. I don't think Giants are going to be that close, but yeah, it would be an okay result for me though.
But it would still be the under. That's why I thought you would go with the the anti-scorigami.
Yeah. I could see the anti-scorigami actually for all three of the games I bet on. I could see that be the Chiefs beating Houston 20-17. I could see
Yeah.
I could see Baltimore beating Pittsburgh 20-17, and I could see the Falcons probably beating the Giants 20-17.
And if that was the case, you would win all three bets, and you'd get to say that you picked them all correctly if they like to the exact
Yeah. Let's
scores even.
let's get let's I have a right to reserve my on the big board to bet a little bit differently, but
Of course.
I will pick home team 20, road team 17 in all three of those games.
Yes.
Will that make you
We
proud?
have we have in the past actually flipped our locks on the big board. It has happened before.
Yes.
Not very often though.
Usually I think
It
accidentally.
it tends to be an accident, not purposeful. Yes. My third pick of this week, final lock. I've been betting on the Monday night games because I tend to want to find a reason to actually have to care about the Monday night games. Uh, I haven't been all that interested in the matchups of late. This is another one that's not terribly great matchup though either. New Orleans at Green Bay. Um,
No.
Green Bay is heavily favored in this way, in this one, 13 and a half points. But again, I'm going to stick with the under here. I think the Monday night games have been a little underperforming in general for point totals, especially as we get into this time of the year. We're talking about mid-December in Green Bay. Odds of weather being not so great are pretty high. New Orleans probably not super accustomed to playing in the cold weather. Uh, Over under the game's a little higher than I would have thought, even at 42 and a half, the same number that you've got in the Giants Falcons game. So I like the under here also. Green Bay is likely to win pretty handily, but I don't see New Orleans scoring a lot of points. And Green Bay has gone to a pretty heavily ground centric attack. So I'm going to stick with the under on this one.
Yeah, it'll be a Jake Hayner or Spencer Rattler led New Orleans team, so I don't see them scoring a lot of points. It's also a warm weather dome team playing on the road at night in a cold weather city,
Yes.
uh, outdoors. So I could see them not playing particularly well. So yeah, I like that bet as an under, something like even 28-10 game or something like that.
Even if it's a runaway. I mean, it could be something like a 14-0 game if
I
the
guess it
game
could
comes
also
in.
be home team 20, road team 17 would also get you there. But
Still fine.
I don't know if you see the game that close though.
I'd be surprised if it's that close. Yeah. And now watch it'll be the other way around. It'll be like 40-0. New Orleans rolls over Green Bay. And that would still be fine because it's a 42 and a half point
Yeah.
over under.
Do you think that so speaking of 2017, would you wager that any one of these games of any of the games this week will be a 2017 home team 20, road team 17 game? What are the odds you think one of those games will end up with that?
Um, if if there was a if that was a bet to make, I would take it this week. I don't know. I mean, that seems why not? Why not, Mike? Why not? Why would you not take it?
What odds do you think you would get if you were making that bet?
That any game ends 20-17?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if an exacta score is, I think, pays out pretty high just in general, but yeah, generalized 1 out of 16 games, yeah, it'd still be fairly high for
Think you get 5 to 1 on it?
it'd have to be somewhere in that vicinity, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
If any game ends with a particular score, yeah, I
Yeah.
think it'd have to be somewhere in that area. Yeah. Will they even make that kind of bet though? That seems like it's a very specific thing to bet on.
Well, yeah. Yeah, it is a difficult. I don't know what it, yeah. So there have
No.
been, if you go to Scoregami, 2017 is two, 297 games have ended 20-17. Um, and this season, let's see how many games this season have ended 2017. Um,
Well, there've been a few because we've talked about them,
yeah, there's
here
been
even. So
one, two, three, four, five, six, 7 games this season have already ended 20-17. And there were one, two, three, four, five, six, 7, 8 games last season, 20-17.
there were none last week. So that must mean it's bound to come up this week.
In week 9 of 2022, there were 4 games that ended 20-17. I think that's interesting. Yeah, so
If you were offered that bet, that might, which would you
five
take
to
it then
one
this
you take, I think, for sure, because it's less, it's almost a, I'd say 2 or 3 to 1 uh bet, because it's one, two, it's been, yeah, it's been a few weeks. It's been since week 11. That week 11 was the last 2017 game. So, but yeah, interesting. Well, if we could bet on that game, maybe bet on the 2017 game, maybe we would. Do any of the individual games look interesting? Maybe the Thursday night game was something we can talk about because it's a matchup between two AFC West opponents, the Broncos at the Chargers in Los Angeles. Do you like either of those two teams? Denver is 3-point road underdogs against the Chargers.
they're coming off a pretty decent win. Chargers are coming off a pretty bad loss. I'm a little surprised that the Chargers are favored in this one.
So you might take Denver then in that game.
I would, but again, it's a Thursday night game. We don't, neither of us particularly care to bet on Thursday night games in general.
Mhm.
We're forced to here because that's part of
Uh,
our the scheme that we're doing. So requires us to bet on all the games. So we have no choice. We're going to do it, but uh, generally we don't like it though, do we?
no, no. I think that's one of the more attractive matchups this week. There aren't that many good matchups this week that we haven't talked about already. I think Houston
Uh,
City, Baltimore, Pittsburgh. We didn't talk about Philadelphia at Washington. That could be an interesting game.
mhm.
Philadelphia's 3.5 point favorites in Washington. Washington's been playing well again after their kind of mini slump in the middle of the season, just last few weeks. Um, they are 9-5. The Eagles, of course, are 12-2. So I guess it's still possible that the Washington could still win the division if they win out and the Eagles lose out. If they ruin the table and the Washington runs the table. Um, but yeah, do you have any inkling on that one? 3.5 point favorite for Philly?
Yeah, Washington's a bit of an enigma, I think, for me still this season. I don't quite know how to bet them in general, but Philly's been playing so well. I don't know how to go against them right now. Like I'll probably just be betting on Philly for most of the rest of the season until they show me something else.
Could that be a 2017 Philadelphia win? So it would be less or um, yeah. So I don't know. I don't know that one either.
Yeah,
Um, and I'm gonna see what happens later this week to see what I want to do with that line. I don't.
yeah.
There aren't any exciting other games that we haven't talked about. I don't think.
Well, I think
Uh,
on paper before the season started, I think the game that would have been scheduled on circled on this schedule would have been the San Francisco 49ers at Miami
my
Dolphins game.
yeah.
But neither team are playing particularly well this year, and they both have dealt with some pretty serious injuries. So I don't think this game is as lustrous as they probably would
No,
have thought it to be before the season started.
no, no. Yeah, none of those 3:30 games are. You have New England at Buffalo, Jacksonville at the Raiders. Usually one of the two of those games is seen as usually the 3:30 game is the bigger one. The 3 o'clock game is not quite as big as the 3:30 game. Uh,
Yeah,
and the best one I think is Minnesota at Seattle by far of those three
yeah.
matchups. But
But we've
um,
seen Buffalo struggle with New England, so
yeah,
in past seasons, like, it may not be the cakewalk that the line expects it to be at minus 14 and a half for Buffalo. Surprised that it's that big of a spread?
yeah, I guess, but not I don't know if I don't know if I would bet on it, but I don't know. It's the way Buffalo's been playing, but they've also been allowing a lot of points too. So uh,
Yeah,
it's it's not the Belichick uh, um, it's not the Belichick Patriots.
right.
Speaking of Belichick, we didn't talk about Bill Belichick joining the North Carolina Tar Heels as their new head coach. What do you think of Belichick at North Carolina?
Shocked that he's going to the
Yeah,
college
we had talked about it a couple
ranks.
weeks ago as so he interviewed there, which we thought was interesting. I don't think either of us thought he'd actually wind up there, but
Not
he
at all.
was fed up with how the NFL operates and wanted to go to coach in the college ranks. There's already a futures bet that you can bet on the over/under for wins in the season for the um, Tar Heels at 7.5. This year they're 6-6, and they play in the Fenway Bowl, I believe, against. I can't remember which opponent they play against. UConn, I think, in the Fenway Bowl. Uh,
Yeah.
so they could be 7-6, and Coach Mac Brown's last season as coach. But yeah, there's 7.5 games is their over under on the win total. Would you take the over or the under on 7.5? Coach Bill Belichick wins next year.
I mean, that seems pretty easy to take the over on that one. I mean, they did win 6 games this season and possibly a seventh, so they're only asking for maybe 1, 2 wins max to be able to get, from where they are now to where, where they need to be for the over. That seems really surprising to me that it's that the over under number is that low.
Hmm.
You would think that he'd be able to, just on his name alone, be able to recruit a few more players there. I think they're working on expanding their NIL number pretty dramatically upwards, apparently, from as part of the Belichick's requirement for taking the coaching job there. So that'll certainly help with incentivizing players to get there. That seems like, even if he doesn't particularly do that well with recruiting, you'd think they'd still be able to pick up 2 wins, wouldn't you think?
I would tend to think that too. So I tend to take the over on that one. Be 8-4, 8-5, whatever it would end up
Yeah.
being. So yeah, it's the ACC. It's not jumping into the SEC or Big Ten.
Right.
So there
He
are
doesn't
some.
have to, he doesn't have to go face Georgia and Alabama and Tennessee and stuff like that. So that's it's the ACC.
I'm looking at there's 2025 schedule.
Yeah, there are so many teams in the conferences now that yeah, you know they're not playing everybody
Okay.
in the
Here's
conference.
so here are the teams. Um, they play TCU, Charlotte, Richmond, Central Florida, the Cal, NC State, Clemson, Duke, Stanford, Virginia, Syracuse, Wake Forest.
Yeah, so there's some tough games in there, but
You have Clemson, but you don't have, you might notice there's like, because some of the names, you don't have Miami, you don't have Florida State,
right.
you don't have SMU in there. Uh,
Hmm.
so you have Cal and Stanford, the two new ACC teams, but there's a lot of, yeah, yeah, I don't know. I think they could do it.
Yeah,
There's no Pitt. Pitt has been pretty good in the ACC. No, no Virginia Tech. Um, such a big conference. They don't play a lot of teams, so
yeah,
they do play Clemson, which is usually one of the best teams in the conference.
perennial bowl team.
Yeah,
You know,
but yeah. So we'll see. Any other news we want to talk about, or should we wrap up this week's episode of the Warner Tech Power Hour?
I think we're done for the day.
All right. Well, this has been another exciting episode full of hard hitting and hair splitting analysis by yours and yours truly and his truly. Uh, yours truly. Are we both yours truly? Since we're talking to an imaginary, maybe not imaginary, but actual dozens of listeners to the One Trick Power Hour, and yours truly and yours truly. Dr. Scaff and Dr. Werman have enjoyed having you as listeners and as viewers over these past many weeks, now years of the Warning Truck Power Hour, with still more weeks and hopefully more years to come. So we'll have that to look forward to. We also have to look forward to week 16 in NFL action. Next week we'll also preview week 17. We'll talk about what happened in the college football playoffs as well, and preview the quarterfinal action in the college football playoffs. See how our picks did, and we'll see how all that turns out. Hopefully, well, I guess I am the only one who has a possibility of losing their futures national championship bet this week because
Right.
has a bye, so it's possible Ohio State will be out. So that would be a blow for sure for my chances at winning our little competition between us for the college football playoff. But I see Ohio State as advancing, and so do you. Uh, even
We
we
both
both
picked them. Yeah, the
we
only
both
one we agreed on.
we both picked them in the spread too. So yeah,
Yeah.
just to win. So um, yeah, so I think it's a very exciting college football weekend. One full of NFL and college football action. So, um, as always, I am Dr. Michael Werman. He is Dr. Andrew Scaff. We are the Warren Track Power Hour. Please like and or subscribe to our YouTube channel and our podcast, which is available on many different podcast delivery platforms. We look forward to this weekend, and we hope our viewers and listeners do very well on their bets this weekend if they are making them, and as long as their interests do not conflict with ours. So, as always, we'll sign off here at WTPH, wishing you all a good day.